My name is Scott Heimendinger, and I am an inventor, and I'm the founder of Seattle Ultrasonics. We just 5 weeks ago launched our first product, which is the first ultrasonic chef's knife for home cooks. And here it is. I'll put in the battery, and I'll do it so that you can hear it here. Makes a little charge-up sound when it's inserted. And this is the product. You can't hear it when it's on. You can't feel any vibration in the handle at all. But check this out. Yeah, absolutely. What I want you to do is, the knife is only on when you're holding down the button. I want you to take your fingers and gently just kind of rub on that part of the blade, and now turn it on while you're rubbing. And then sort of
press this down.
Yep, that's it. And you can go on, off, on, off.
Oh.
Do you feel that?
Yeah.
Feels kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
I describe it as kind of like touching an air hockey table. What you're feeling is the blade moving microscopically 40,000 times a second.
Okay.
So inside the handle are some electronics and a stack of piezo ceramic crystals, and they create vibrations that cause the metal of the blade itself to expand and contract. It's microscopic, so you can't see it move at all with the human eye, but what you're feeling is the reduced friction that you get from touching a surface that's in motion.
It's kind of like, it's vibrating.
It's vibrating, and it's vibrating sort of this way, in this direction. It's going back and forth and back and forth. And what that does is takes the cutting edge here, which is a very nice edge. You can use it when it's off, and it's a very sharp knife. But each part of that edge is now moving back and forth, which creates sort of a micro-slicing motion. So when you are trying to get through the skin of the tomato, for example, which is something that dull knives just struggle with, it's the worst, that micro-slicing helps it just bite right into the skin so that you stay in control and you need less force to complete the cut. But then, once you're inside a food, like a potato, for example, which is starchy and sticky, most of what you're doing when you're cutting that food doesn't really depend on the sharp edge. It's about the sides of the blade and friction. But when this knife is on, it has lower friction. So you're able to make cleaner cuts, and the potato slices don't want to stick to the side of the knife. So instead of things piling up, they are more likely to just release onto the cutting board.
Okay. But wouldn't the same thing be achieved with a really sharp blade?
Sort of, but not quite. So we can have a race in sharpness, right? How sharp can you get your blade? But there's a trade-off whenever you engage in that race. In order to make a blade sharper and sharper and sharper, you are honing down the amount of material on the cutting edge to a finer and finer and finer point, which means that in exchange for that sharpness, now it's more fragile. This blade, you can still make very sharp. You can sharpen it as sharp as you want, but it becomes sharper when it's on at any dullness, at any bevel angle, which means that you can have the benefit of that increased sharpness, but with a more durable edge. It's also the case that for this blade, when it's on, for parts of it, it is sharper than the sharpest knife you could imagine. Now, I don't really care about that. I don't care about being the sharpest or anything like that. What I care about is making home cooking easier. Do you sharpen your knives at home?
Yes.
Okay. Imagine going over to a friend or a family member's house and using their knives. How likely is it that they are sharp? Most home cooks maybe never sharpen their knives, or every couple of years or whatever. And so they're cutting with dull knives, food is sticking, and it may be a subtle effect, but they're having a less good time in the kitchen. They feel less in control, maybe more afraid of certain types of cuts, or unable to get the results they want. They're squashing tomatoes, that kind of stuff. I want that all to go away. I want the sort of new car smell for knives for everyone.
Like you said, slicing tomatoes. That is definitely one of the harder things to do with a not sharp knife. Does it save time? Does it save effort? And is kind of the trade-off okay for especially for people who don't cook very often?
Yeah. Saving time, maybe arguably a little bit, but that's sort of not important. Effort, absolutely. So I have a robot arm in my lab, which is just a room in my home. And I mounted the knife to the robot arm and put a bunch of foods on the scale. And did the same cutting motion, exactly repeated over and over again. And for this knife, with tomatoes, it takes half the force to cut through that tomato when the knife is on compared to off.
Okay.
So you're saving at least 50% for that. So it is a significant difference. And that force over time, you know, if you're for a full meal prep, that little bit of force accumulates. I like to say, you're not cutting with a lightsaber, right? It's not just gonna go right through your cutting board, but it's more like an e-bike, right?
Okay.
If you're going uphill, it's really nice to have that assist, that type of thing.
Would this make sense in a commercial kitchen?
The general concept, yes. This one, though, is designed for home cooks.
Okay.
Commercial kitchens are so tough on their equipment. They get beat up and tossed around and all that. I would love to have one available because I think it would do a lot for those environments.
Because they're cutting
A lot.
at scale.
Yes, yeah. And including, places that do butchery or anything like that. But I want to learn from home cooks and then figure out how to ruggedize the design so that it can stand up to a commercial environment.
So it has presumably some electronic stuff in it.
That's right.
How does that hold up in terms of washing? How much abuse the knife can take?
Yeah, it's meant for you to use it just like an ordinary kitchen knife. So you can put it down and smash a clove of garlic with it, no problem. For washing, you wash it like you would any other good knife, which is to say, don't put it in the dishwasher.
Yeah.
But you can rinse it under the sink. It's IP65 with the battery inserted. Everything forward of the handle, like this connection, is IP67. So rinsing it,
Sorry, I don't know what IP65 and IP67 is.
it just means that you can spray water on it for an extended period of time, and it's fine. Nothing bad happens. So I've taken a lot of care to seal everything up. The button is sealed from a molded gasket inside. So you can just rinse it under the sink and scrub it with your scrubber, use dish soap, all that kind of stuff.
So do you have to take the battery off when you wash it?
Great question. Leave the battery in to wash it because it keeps everything sealed. There's a little connector in there. That connector does have a gasket, but just keep the battery in for washing. When it's time to recharge, the battery is USB-C, so you can just plug in any USB-C cable you want. But I sort of take this position that if I'm going to introduce something so new, I really want people to not have to change any of their behavior. And so you can hold it like a regular knife, you can do regular knife cuts, you can wash it, you can do all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the battery, this is one more step that you don't normally have to do.
Yeah.
So I developed this, which is the wireless charging tile. It's a magnetic mount for the knife that can go on the wall or on the counter or in a drawer. It has its own battery and it wirelessly recharges the knife. So if you keep your knives mounted on the wall like I do, this comes with a really cool little mounting plate with command strips, so you don't even have to drill holes or anything like that. And when you're done with the knife, you just put it right up there and it recharges itself, so it's always ready to go. The knife is $399 USD. The charging tile is $150 US, but if you buy them together, it's $500 total, so there's a little bit of a bundle savings. And that is a lot of money. $400 for a knife is certainly a lot of money for one knife. However, you can walk into a kitchen store in the US today and find several knives at or above $400 that are just traditional knives. For a mass-produced single chef's knife, it is not hard to spend more than $400. And then, of course, if you go into handmade, custom, or some of the stuff that's here in Japan, you can spend thousands of dollars quite easily. You can also spend a lot less money and get a pretty decent chef's knife. So to start out, this is for people who care about cooking and who want to invest in better tools. I can't wait to bring the price down for this. It's just a very expensive product to make, and it's expensive time to make products with US tariffs and all of that adding to the cost of everything. So I can't wait to drive that price down over time. But for our launch SKU, I've done everything I can to make this as affordable as possible for mass production.
Okay. Where are you producing it? Like, where are you manufacturing it?
The final assembly is done in Malaysia. We use steel made in Japan, but then formed and into the knife and then milled and metal injection molded in China. There's a whole city in China that's where mass-produced blades are made. And then headquarters is Seattle, Washington, United States.
Tested this out with a lot of home chefs, yes?
Yes, yeah.
So what was the idea? I should have asked this first. What was the idea behind actually creating it in this way?
So I didn't invent the idea of ultrasonic cutting. Ultrasonic cutting has existed in commercial food processing for decades. So when you go buy that pre-sliced cheesecake or a log of mozzarella cheese or even breads or other things, when those are cut or portioned in a factory, they're not using a sharp knife. And the reason is that those factories run 24 hours a day. That sharp knife would be dull in a few hours, right? So they can't rely on sharpness. So instead, what they use are these machines that really look nothing like a knife. It's like a big metal wedge that they pass a bunch of ultrasonic energy through, and that causes them to behave as if they're sharp. It keeps product from deforming. So if you're like cutting a cheesecake, it doesn't squish, it doesn't stick, you get clean cuts, things like that. So I saw videos of these, and if you watch those videos, they look like magic, right? It looks like a magic trick. Like we're not used to seeing something behave that way. But these are machines that cost tens of thousands of dollars. The power supplies alone are the size of a shoebox or bigger, and they're plugged into wall power. So I wondered, could I take that core concept and try to translate it for home cooks so you get those same benefits? Easier cutting, less sticking, greater control, and a better time making dinner. Ultrasonics are used in all sorts of, when we all had our N95 masks, that elastic that's connected to the part of the mask is ultrasonically welded. It's not a glue. My battery pack, you can see, is a two-piece assembly, two halves. It's ultrasonically welded together, so the plastics just mold together. So ultrasonics are used for a wide array of stuff, but my whole background in making things has been trying to find something that's proven and successful in an industrial setting, and then do the work to translate that, for home cooks. The users, the sort of beta users and whatever, who have been using this for a while, even people who I met and we just had maybe 45 minutes together who were cutting with it, you get so used to the little benefit that it provides that when you turn it off or you go back to another knife, you miss it, right? Like, why wouldn't you want it to be even, that 50% for tomatoes? Why wouldn't you want it to be easier? It becomes slightly like, part of what you come to expect the knife to feel like.
Is there the potential of a safety aspect to this? Like, are you less likely to cut through your fingers?
So a lot of those kitchen accidents happen not because your knife is so sharp, because it's dull.
Yeah.
And when it's dull, you don't have control, and so you're pushing down on the food with a lot of force, and then it slips, and you don't. So sharper knives are safer. Dull knives lead to more accidents. So I hope that's a big part of the benefit that I'm providing here.
Who did you test the knife with? What kind of beta users were they?
Sure. Folks who are restaurant chefs, folks who are very good home cooks, folks who aren't either of those categories, people who don't really never sharpen their knives, don't really care about their knives, but sort of have that experience of the test drive for the first time and feel what sharpness is like again. I've tested with people who are elderly or who have reduced mobility or some hand problems. I haven't tested with kids. This is not for kids. Yeah.
I would recommend.
Yeah, but people who sort of fill out that, it's for home cooks. I'm interested in the feedback I get from professionals, of course, because I see it with a different lens.
So even people with reduced mobility, you still need to hold the button down, yeah?
That's right. That's right. So I'm not advertising it or making any claims that it's going to benefit that community. Early next year, I'm going to start working actually with occupational therapists to get an assessment of what they think in terms of this. The handle, of course, is a little larger than the handle on a normal knife because it has to be, because it's fitting stuff. But that larger handle may actually be a benefit for people with trouble gripping smaller objects. So we'll find out. And yeah, this button may or may not be a problem. You can feel how much force it takes to touch the button. It's barely any. So it's meant to just be the smallest of clicks, like less force than it takes to change the volume on your phone. If it is actually providing a net useful benefit for those folks, I will say that a lot of that community has found it and has said, wow, I'm really excited. I have rheumatoid arthritis or other things, and this looks like a great possibility, but I'm not advertising to them.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.